It looks like Robyn is swimming fervently down a river called denial. Yeah, we got a lot to unpack in this first episode of The Real Housewives of Potomac Season 8. The episode is titled Projections and Deflections, a direct quote from Dr. Wendy Acepho herself. I'm excited to find out what you guys felt about this, and I feel like some of what I felt may surprise you. So buckle up, baby, because we got a lot to dive into. If you are new here, subscribe, please, please, please. We love it when you join the Sky Squad fam. And let's dive straight in. You know, we always start with our ratings. So, like, what are we rating this episode on a scale of 1 to 10? I'm actually going to give this, I'm gonna give it, I'm gonna give it a, I'm gonna give it an, this is hard because I'm torn between a 9.5 and a 10. I think I'm going to stick with a 9.5 because, or a solid 9, because I do feel like there could be better episodes to come. And I know that some of you guys may be over the Robyn and Juan stuff, but I got to tell you guys, I was honestly intrigued and rather pleased with the way that this episode was rolled out. From the very beginning, I'm looking at the intro and we're getting it's kind of like the trailer for the season. And I noticed in the intro title for this particular episode that new cast member Ineka was not a part of that cast photo frame. So I took that to mean that we were going to pick this episode off with the drama that went on with Robyn, and that was going to be a majority of the through line of the episode. And I'm actually okay with that because there was really no need to try to shoehorn Ineka into this mix of already established story. I appreciate what they did in this episode when I juxtapose it with my feelings about the first episode of Basketball Wives and how they glazed over the issues from the previous season. And I feel like I like that they were like, okay, well, let's dive headfirst into this at the jump, okay? And then we get that intervention at the end, which was very interesting to me because there are some things that I noticed that I don't know if you guys picked up on as well. But if you did, I can't wait to hear your thoughts about it. The other thing that I felt like was interesting to me, as we spoke about before, because we had already kind of previewed this intro scene, but they had this whole Stranger Things type of, recap of a montage. And we went over all the juicy details that came out regarding this Robyn and Juan situation where he had went to go apparently sign for this girl from Canada to get, to pay for her hotel. All because he alleges that he is being a good Samaritan. It okay. I I I I'm not even gonna get to that. I'm gonna dive into it a little bit, but we're gonna talk about it a lot more later. We start the episode off with Robyn and Juan at home. And just to recap, there was also there's the woman in Canada. There was the allegations of him being with the assistant coach and looking too cozy with the assistant coach. I guess her name is Brianna. At the laundromat and as well at the nail salon. Okay. So Robyn's at home, ironically, she is framing photos from their wedding, and then they got to go into this conversation. I thought that was so interesting. And so as Juan comes into the frame, he sits down and, they get right into it. It's a very awkward conversation. And she describes, what they're going through as a lot of noise, from the outside. Juan does acknowledge that this was stupid, regarding the girl with the hotel receipts signing for this hotel receipt, allegedly. He says that he told Robyn not to acknowledge this on the podcast, which was also interesting and felt very real to me. I've previously stated to you guys before that I don't understand why she did that. if this was something that you were determined that you were not going to talk about during the season, when this girl came out with all of these allegations, your best bet would have been to ignore it. Period. Dot. Especially if you did not want it to become a thing. Okay? Because if it was a lie, why would you chase the lie? Then, furthermore, why acknowledge it with this cockamamie story? If Juan told her not to talk about it on the podcast, it begs me to wonder why Gizelle would have been okay with her talking about it on the podcast if she in fact felt the way that she feels today, which is that the story sounded as cockamamie to her as it did to the rest of the world. It felt like she was encouraging it on the podcast, but in this episode, it seemed like she was firmly against it. So that leaves me with some interesting questions about Gizelle in this episode. Okay. I just want to know if anybody else thought about that. Like, it seemed like a very interesting contrast for how she sounded on the podcast episode to what she was saying in this particular episode. Anyway, Juan is just, he is just so nice. You know what I'm saying? Like, Juan is just the nicest guy in the world. He even gives to the homeless, gives to the needy and not the greedy. That's right. Let me know if you know what that's from. And he kind of retells the story in his own words, and it still sounds as cockamamie as it did the day that she told it, and the day that she told it on Watch What Happens Live. It has never sounded like a story that is plausible to any degree, and it doesn't make any sense at all whatsoever. Okay. She says, well, you were at the hotel with the woman. I mean, why not go up in there? And then he says something interesting. He's like, did you see her? So I'm not trying to, I'm not sure if he was trying to say, well, she ain't really like a looker or nothing like that. So, that's why it's hard to believe that I would not go in the hotel room. But I feel like she raised a valid question. Why not go into the hotel room if you're going to pay for the hotel? So, again, he acknowledges that he is just too nice. Nice guy Juan. That's his new name. Nice guy Juan. Anyway, she talks about the other ladies not understanding, particularly Candiace and Karen, and her not wanting to, acknowledge any of this with them. And she's particularly upset with Candiace since she felt like she supported Candiace during the takedown of Chris Bassett, i.e., Gizelle revealing she felt uncomfortable with Chris, and then all these other allegations that came out from some of the other ladies. Well, really Ashley as well as her friend Deborah. All right. Robyn says, but I must point out that Robyn's tune with her level of support for Candiace changed quite significantly during the reunion, which I also thought was interesting because it felt like she more so had Gizelle's back in the reunion than she did Candiace's, which again was a very interesting contrast from how she was during the season. Anyway, they both know this story sounds crazy, Robyn and Juan. And Robyn says he would never make up something that stupid. Well, I think he would if he felt like you would believe him. Anyway, she acknowledges that people think that he's lying to her. Well, I'm glad you understand what this is about, okay? She says, then they got to go to him and the assistant at the nail salon. He acknowledges that she's a beautiful, attractive woman. Why? We did not need to know what your thoughts were about it, and you just made yourself look extra crazy by even saying that about your coworker. What for? Why come? Like, it was just weird. Then, Robyn also thinks that she and the assistant coach, the beautiful, attractive assistant coach lookalike, which he completely glosses over. Then he lost his job. And the public thought that he lost his job, well, because of the lawsuit that he was named in, which I have to report, I feel like he was later, his name was later removed from this lawsuit, or he was later vindicated in some way, shape, or form. I can't even honestly recall. Anyway, ultimately, he hates giving it any energy at all, and he wants to focus on their boys. Convenient, you know? Meanwhile, Candiace, Karen, and Wendy meet up, and they are recapping, things. Some interesting things I think we need to point out, because I think that these things will become more important later, is that, Wendy is carrying around her rosary. She gave up alcohol for Lent, and I did not realize that Wendy was Catholic. Not that it's either here nor there, but it's brought up in the episode. I bring up religion because it will become an important plot point later. Trust and believe. All right. Not to be discussed today because it doesn't come up today, but we will discuss it when it comes up. All right. They all kind of check in about, the reunion, and they all realize that they were the targets in order for Robyn not to have to discuss her own truth. And so what blew Candiace's mind was that Robyn stated to Andy that she was waiting for Kern to bring it up. Why? Like that, what that tells me again is what type of show this is. And the premise of the show has gone far beyond the idea of, just capturing the lives of these dynamic, rich society ladies who live beyond the gates, to a game of let's play Scandal and Gotcha. Okay. Who can get you first? Get you, yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like I somewhat get it, because I feel like Housewives nowadays, most of the seasons rely on this idea of the scandal to sell the season. And what is the scandal going to be this season? And once you got the scandal, you got the storyline that's going to be the through line for at least the better part of the season, right? So, I understand her logic to a certain degree, as in I'm waiting for Karen to bring it up. But I feel like Karen is one of those people that doesn't necessarily strike first. I feel like she strikes back, but I could be wrong. You know what I'm saying? So again, I feel like the thing with Robyn that most people are frustrated by, that she's failing to understand, is her desire to push everyone else to live their authentic story at the forefront of the filming process, while she herself chooses not to. All right. As made evident by something she said at the reunion. We're on a reality TV show, and everybody else has to tell their story. So, girl, now you have to tell yours. Okay. So I think that's also another reason why the ladies are looking at her with a little bit of a cock eye. You know what I'm saying? They surmise that Robyn and Juan could be in an arrangement, or they wonder if she's indeed even married at all. Now, I know that this has been there's been a lot of speculation about whether or not they were really truthfully married at all. I don't know. I mean, I feel like they married. I don't, because in my mind, I feel like, why go through all of the headache of the photos and the pomp and circumstance that they went through, only to fake it till you make it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know. I could be wrong, and I could be naive. You know what I'm saying? Y'all might think I'm naive for what I'm going to say a little bit later on. So hang on to your wigs and your ball caps, okay? Over at Ashley's $2 million seaside chateau, she's talking about how it's just her raising the boys, and Daisy, the nanny. I'm wondering where Daisy was when one of the kids was pulling the other kid up on the counter. I think it's just me and my nerves. And maybe I need to, as I prepare in my mind to become a dad, right? I always think to myself, like, I don't know if because the kids, to me, it's I feel like the kids can be a little rambunctious, and him pulling the little kid up, the little brother or the old whoever was pulling whoever up on the counter, I was just like, oh Lord, Ashley, turn around, Ashley, cameraman, go over there and get the kid, go over there, oh my God. And finally he gets on the counter. I was like, okay, oh, Lord have mercy, where was Daisy? Okay, you see Ashley's back was turned. Daisy, where was you at? Anyway, again, this is just me. I'm not commenting on her parenting at all. these are things I'm just telling you that as I'm watching the episode, I'm giving you my feelings as I'm watching it. So that's how I felt. I was concerned. I really was. I was the unconcerned non-parent. I was the concerned non-parent. Let me say that. Anyway, Michael's name is on the mortgage. She won't know what will happen, regarding the finances until the divorce, which she admits that she is dragging her feet on. I mean, why not stay connected to the monies? She calls Gizelle. Apparently, Michael was in the Bahamas with her. He's still paying child support. And she admits, again, like I said, to dragging her feet with the divorce. And Jizzy wants to gather the girls for delusional, Robyn. Note, in this episode, Gizelle lays it on thick with this idea that Robyn is delusional, okay? Now, I ain't say it, she said it. I might say it later, but I'm just letting you know who's saying it the most, right? Delusion. Anyway, she says she doesn't want to call it that. Robyn's mental health, though, is of prime concern for her. And apparently, because Juan always feels sorry for the people, and he's just nice guy Juan. And Jizzy wants her to know, girl, you look crazy. Why didn't you tell her that the day that she released this information on the podcast? Girl, you look crazy. The moment she told you that story, you didn't think she looked crazy? Save her some embarrassment. I'm just pointing out, to me, what feels obvious is that I have to question Gizelle's level of friendship. And I know that they are good friends. I genuinely sense that. And I genuinely sense that Gizelle does care about her. But I do have to wonder, at what point your tune changed? Because you obviously knew about this when it happened. I would have to believe. Maybe she didn't. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, you then let her go out like that on the podcast for y'all to make a little extra coin. Was it worth it? Was her embarrassment worth it? I don't know. So the next thing we see is Gizelle with Jason. And I'm going to be very honest with you guys. I have a hard time believing these seasonal romances that occur on some of these reality TV shows with some of these characters. We'll talk about that later with regards to Married to Medicine and Phaedra. I think that on paper, Gizelle and this guy Jason look great together. So yeah, this romance with Jason, I don't know. I just feel like she was trying to sell us on the chemistry. He didn't really seem to me all that interested. I don't know. He lives in New York. She lives in Potomac. Obviously, Grace has met him. Obviously, Angel is around him while they're cooking. So it would lead us to believe that it was serious. But it's me. I'm the jaded person here because of what we've seen so long on reality TV. And with an understanding that a lot of these things happen simply because the cameras are rolling and there's a story that needs to be told. So I'm going to let this go for now because there's really nothing I can say. I have no proof that it's not real, but I'm just telling you what my feelings are, and it doesn't feel real. But if it is, more power to them. All right, so Mia and G have moved out of the big house. They went from 11,000 square feet to 1,500 square feet in their North Bethesda rental place. It does look nice. I can't say that. Apparently, the company owes him upwards of $500,000 allegedly. He was voted out of the family business, is what we now learn. And she doesn't know why. And he doesn't know why. And it's allegedly put a financial strain on the household. Apparently, he sat on the sofa depressed for about 2 months. And, he felt like she thought that he did something wrong, which I would say would be, probably the questions that I would have, like, what did you do? Like, is there something that I'm missing? Because why would they all of a sudden just vote you out of the family business, like, without a moment's notice? Like, it just seems crazy. But apparently there were rumors of audits, but things came out clean. He did not know that she had stopped drinking hard alcohol. She's still drinking the wine though. And apparently the last time she had a hard alcohol was when things went rocky with her and Karen. And she basically is wondering if she should call Karen and apologize for calling Karen a hoe. I don't really have anything else to say about this other than I do think it's refreshing that we can see a housewife who is living authentically in this new reality that she is faced with. There are a lot of people that I feel like would try to hide this, and they would not want us to know that things had gone from this to this. And she talks about having to make lifestyle adjustments, and I just think that that is such a real story that we don't usually see. I mean, I think we saw it a little bit with like Toya and Eugene at one point when they were dealing with the heavy tax issues, but to see it on a housewives show and to see them really go through that, I'm interested in following this story and following the journey to see how it turns out. Chris and Candiace go for a picnic. She's been off on tour. She's spending the money on the tours, but she's got to go bigger and better. They recap the Robyn'S scandal a bit, and Candiace acknowledges that Robyn was supportive in the beginning, but then noticed how she moved a little bit later on. And she wonders if she was only supporting her and Chris to cover her own tracks. Chris, though, does suggest that Candiace have a ponderosa with Robyn, and she says that she is open. Over at Jizzy's, now this to me was probably the most interesting the beginning and the end were the most interesting aspects of the episode, because now we get to see Robyn have to explain herself to her girlfriends. Now, I will be honest with you. I feel like this conversation was definitely necessary for this episode. I love that they dove right into it in the first episode of the season. I love that they held her feet to the fire. They were honest with her. At least Ashley and Charisse. Gizelle, I'm still on the fence about, because there are times when I'm watching Gizelle and I see former first lady who is doling out, wise woman advice. But then there's also things that I remember, like you were egging it on for her to tell this tea on the podcast, or at least in support of, so much so that you let her do it. So now to see her switch gears and change directions, it's kind of given me a little bit of whiplash, because she's so far on the other side of where she seemed initially, right? However, the other thing that I have to wonder is why, Gizelle, you would not let these women into your home. We know that you filmed there, but you're going to make these women slip and slide down this back alley walkway that's clearly either been rained on or is wet, in their high heels, and they got to halfway walk backwards to get down the hill. Why? Why are you making them do this? Why don't you have these women come on in through the house? Now, I don't know if producers thought that would be a fun idea or what, to put these ladies in the danger zone. But I would have been like, I'm not walking down there. Especially if they got on their heels. Like, why would you do that? Anyway, because all of them have been in similar situations with cheating men, or allegedly cheating men, I should say. Well, they've all said that they've been cheating on. She felt like, having Ashley and Charisse and Gizelle herself there to sort of figure out what's going on with Robyn, I did feel like this was the appropriate group to have this conversation. I like seeing this level of discourse, because I feel like in the scandal and shade offs of it all, I think that sometimes it's easy to forget that there can be real stories to be told in this day and age. And again, this is one of those types of stories that I feel like maybe people can find relatable, because I found it relatable. I think that before I get into this, everybody has been in a situation where they have been done wrong by a person that they've dated. And you have probably been in that situation and not wanted to leave, even though you knew that what they were telling you was not necessarily the truth or highly unbelievable. And this conversation underscored the notion, in my opinion, that Robyn is indeed, honestly, I feel like she's living in denial. I think that I see a woman sitting before them who has reached a point of cognitive dissonance. And we talk about this, there being two ideas that are stuck in her head, possibly. This idea that, yes, he went to the hotel and signed the receipt. This idea that he's saying that, he's just being a nice guy and did nothing. But then the reality of how that sounds. And in order to stop having to deal with that level of cognitive dissonance, I feel like Robyn has just shut it down in her mind that she is going to be resolved to believe her man, which I can understand, but she also has to acknowledge, and this is where the ladies, I think, want what they want from her, is to acknowledge that this sounds cockamamie. So as they're confronting her, there's this through line of her asking, well, what do you want me to do? Scream and yell at him. Do y'all want me to be divorced? And I'm like, girl, I mean, I don't even want you to be divorced. And I think that Robyn is looking at the heat she was getting online in the wrong way. She's looking at it like, oh, y'all want to see us divorced because y'all want to see me fail. Well, no, it's that if you are going to be so adamant that everybody else tells their story, it's odd to us that you would choose to not share yours. Then the other part of that is you have aligned yourself oftentimes with Gizelle, who has found herself on the wrong side of the stories. And in support of her, when you had to know that she was not necessarily in the right? So people are looking at all of this, okay, and the history, and then we're listening to how cockamamie the story sounds. So for you to then try to sell us for you to pee on us and then tell us it's raining because that's what's happening, because he did that to you, it feels like you are trying to gaslight us as the audience. We're not believing the story, but you're trying to sell it as though it is believable and maybe it is believable for you. But in reality, it comes across like you are simply living in denial, right? I don't think I have a problem or anybody has a problem, and it doesn't really matter if we did, with you staying with one. I don't have a problem with that. But just acknowledge that this story sounds effed up and it's highly not believable, and that you're okay with it. I would rather you simply say that, because then we would know where everything stood and we could all just move on. But it is the continuous, like, oh, everybody just wants to tear me down. No, girl. I mean, you need to talk about your husband and what he's doing, because you're in even denial about that. You think that it is the world who is stealing your joy. And the girls are like, no, ma'am. The root cause of your problems lies in your husband. And if they see it, I don't understand why you don't. But I think it's easier for her to believe that the world is against them. They are Bonnie and Clyde, okay? It's easier for her to think that than to recognize that he might not have been telling the truth. Because then all of the hopes and dreams that she had built, as a result of them choosing to start their life over as a married couple, all that comes crumbling down, and you have to face the reality that he was potentially just not faithful to you. And I would wager that if you guys worked from there, then you can still work your way back to a place where you don't have to live in that space, where you can recognize, and he can recognize, perhaps, oh, I messed up again. What are we going to do? Because right now, the girls are trying to tell you he's not even thinking about you. And you're so busy saying that you don't care that he's not thinking about you. It's like the optics, and Ashley tried to tell her the optics of the assistant coach situation, the laundromat and the nail salon, like they just add on to the cockamamie-ness of that original hotel receipt story. And he don't care that his actions are putting you in awkward positions. And that's wild to me because he is also supposed to be your helpmate and a protector of the family unit. And all of this lollygagging with assistant coach Brianna went for a job you're not even going to have is crazy to me. You would do all of these other things, and then the person that's going to be there for you at the end of the day, you're not even giving her the respect of saying, you know what, I'm going to move a little differently. All right. So back to the conversation. The ladies try to, talk to her about all of this. And Charisse asked her if she's okay and how is her joy. And Robyn, it did break my heart a little bit when she said, her joy has been stolen by the headlines. And, she thinks the world wants to tear them apart and it's not Juan's fault. And they're like, girl, it's his fault. Well, she's like, well, bring it on, pile it on. Just keep beating me up. This is cruel. Again, I feel like she's looking at this all wrong. But I listen, because Charisse has to tell a girl, take the world out of the equation. And, Charisse, to me, in a moment where I felt like Charisse has been the most useful, is in telling her story and being there for Robyn in a way that I feel like if you're going to utilize Charisse, this is probably the best utilization of her as an actual friend helping another friend through a situation, not to bring her back on to do this whole confrontation with Karen. That's no one cares about that. What I really care about is how she adds to the value of the story. And I feel like this was the best use that they have found of her yet. Okay. If you're going to bring her back and you're not going to bring her back in a full-time capacity, then bring her back in a way that feels meaningful. And because we know that she and Robyn are such good friends and she does have this particular story to tell and wisdom that she can impart, I feel like this is where Charisse thrives on this show, in my opinion. Apparently, I love that Ashley said that it feels like a protect Juan campaign, because it does. And apparently, when Robyn found out about the situation, she told him to get the F out. But did he leave? Of course not. Okay. So you didn't even know, there was no even follow-up on a perceived threat. Okay. Because at this point in time, he would have to know that you were just not going to go anywhere. And that's a little bit sad to me, because it makes me kind of wonder about his character. I mean, that you would. My perception is that she's being gaslit. That's just my perception. And now and in return, she's gaslighting us with what she's been gaslit. Gizelle tries to tell her not to lose herself. At the end of the day, Gizelle doesn't believe the stories that Juana told Robyn. Ashley doesn't believe those stories. Charisse doesn't believe those stories. They call out her defensiveness. I don't believe the story. Most of you don't believe the story. And she's like, what do y'all want me to do? And they just really want her to know that they support her. Robyn says that they're going to just continue to live their lives and people can continue to speculate. And Gizelle feels like it's a bubble that is going to finally explode at some point. And for me, for Robyn, I would say, please continue to go on and live your life, because ultimately what we as the public think really doesn't matter. I think that I am trying my hardest to also look at, Robyn as an individual, as a person. You know what I'm saying? Outside of the fact that this is a reality show, because ultimately this is a real situation. So how as a person, do we look at her in this situation with care? I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out once we start getting her interactions with some of the other ladies, because we know that this story is not going anywhere. Okay. It is probably only going to get worse as the other ladies begin to confront her with their thoughts about all of this. I'm interested to see how that plays out. All right, y'all. So that's my review on the Real Housewives of Potomac. Let me know if you enjoyed this episode or not. When I talk about Married to Medicine, I'll talk about which show I think I enjoyed more. I think it will surprise you, or maybe it will, maybe it won't. And I'm interested to know which show you guys enjoyed more. So with that being said, I will catch you all, of course, in the next video.